I'm your host, Davida Shinsky, and you're listening to Live Without Limits, Reach Personal Success on a Daily Basis. And our purpose in this podcast is to help you understand the importance of being the best person that you can ever be, whether it's spiritually, and if you have and need help, then it's always important to get therapy when you need it. And therefore, today's presentation is one where we're going to talk about the different aspects of things that you need to know when you seek out a therapist. And today's presentation is titled Counseling: 7 Important Guidelines That You Should Know Before You Go. If you've ever considered counseling or psychotherapy for whatever reason, there are certain things that you need to know before you even start the journey. And for most people, the first and most important thing is finding the best therapist who offers the type of therapy that you think will benefit you the most. And this is why it's important to do your research and even take 15 minutes with the therapist just to decide and figure out if what she offers or whoever they are, what they offer is a fit for your needs, because each therapist has a specialty in different areas. So when this is done, it is important for you to familiarize yourself with the ethical issues surrounding therapy, because therapy can be quite personal and requires a certain level of vulnerability. Some people might be skeptical of going and opening up to a stranger. This is mostly the case for older people or for those who come from communities and cultures that limit the kind of information that one is expected to share with others, especially if they are not family. It is therefore important for us as clients to understand how things should go in therapy. Knowing this information will help you get comfortable and open to the possibility of opening up to someone and having them help us figure out the things that we might be having difficulty doing on our own. While some therapy guidelines differ across states and countries, there are some commonly recognized principles. Counseling code of ethics. Justice. Therapists and counselors are expected to uphold justice and treat all clients the same despite their individual differences. Differences such as age, race, gender, and financial status should not get in the way of how the counselor treats clients. Self respect. The counselor is expected to uphold self respect and self care. This respect allows the counselor to set up boundaries with clients. For instance, the therapist might specify that they will not take on the role of a therapist whenever they see that their client in other social spaces besides the therapy room. Autonomy. The counselor will always respect the client's autonomy and free will. If a client decides to do or not to do something, the counselor should not coerce the client into making a different decision. Veracity. The counselor is expected to always tell the truth, even when it is difficult to accept. In some cases, they might have to tell the client to seek further help from somewhere else or communicate that the client's problem cannot be entirely solved so that they need to learn how to cope. Fidelity. Counselors are expected to focus on the issue that would have been brought up by the client. They should not divert from the issue or focus on convincing the client why a certain decision might be more appealing. Non male malicious, well, maleficence. Under no circumstances should the counselor use anything that they know about the client to cause harm either to the client or the third party. Beneficence. The counselor is expected to work towards improving their client's well being. They focus on reducing harm and minimizing losses. In some cases, the therapist might have to recommend another intervention if it seems more appropriate. Therapy should not be scary. These essential principles make it easier for us as clients to open up and communicate effectively with our therapists and counselors, knowing that everything you share in sessions will not be used against you or disclosed to a third party allows you to be comfortable enough to be vulnerable to a complete stranger. I hope this presentation reminds you that due to the existence of the code of ethics, therapy is not a bad thing, and some people make it seem the therapist is there to put your needs and well being first in a safe and secure environment. When you communicate with a counselor, I hope you are able to communicate comfortably and openly. They are there to help you deal with whatever issue you think is important. Before you start therapy or counseling, the counselor cannot go forward unless you give the informed consent. Remember, never to consent to anything that you do not understand, even outside of the counseling session. Ask questions and only give consent once you understand everything. Scenarios where the counselors and client have multiple relationships. They interact outside the counseling relationship, maybe as a friend or relatives, are often discouraged. This is because the existence of other forms of relationships might create and foster bias. They also make it challenging for the client to be comfortable enough not to withhold any information if they can be avoided. It is encouraged to find another therapist who you do not have another relationship with. And next time you consider therapy and think it might not work due to ethical reasons, remember that all people who provide therapy or counseling are regulated by governing bodies, and they are there to help you. The one thing that we forget is the reason that we often say, that you shouldn't see your therapist outside of the therapy session, which is why you shouldn't consider going to someone you already know, is because the information you're giving them may be something that is very sensitive and something that you may not really want your friends to know. Therefore, it's important for you to consider a therapist that you don't know, and this way it will help you to be more open and expressive and more willing to change your behavior, because you cannot be changed or willing to change your behavior until you're ready to actually change. And if you're with a friend, what happens? They'll already know you for who you are, and they may, because not just have the objective of what's going on outside in that they already know you, but they'll already have a preconceived idea of what your real issues are, even if you're not willing to disclose them. Therefore, it is important for you to be willing to go to someone you don't know or someone that is recommended to you that someone else has gone to, but always remember that what you say in that session is confidential between you and the therapist.